Hi, this is the first video in a new playlist where I talk to a number of different data professionals and data leaders about getting data done. In this first video, I caught up with the brilliant Clare Paterson from CP Data Protection, and we talked all about the importance of data purpose. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Clare and I have got together today to create this video about data purpose, and I think the first thing we should do, of course, is share an introduction. So Clare, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and let anybody who's watching who doesn't already know you know who you are?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Phil. So I'm Clare Paterson of CP Data Protection, and I've been working in data protection for about 10 plus years. Freelance, self-employed for the last 5 years, and it was one of those things that I just fell into. I was working in a large housing association in the governance team, and it was a case of somebody needs to do this, you're good at that kind of thing, and it just absolutely clicked with me. And I absolutely loved it and ran with it, and GDPR came along and made it bigger news than it already was, and I enjoyed working with wide variety of organisations since then, and learning all the time. And
yeah, this is well over 10 years, hasn't it, been in data protection?
Over 10 years, yeah. Still learning all the time, and it keeps changing, of course. We've now got the UK data protection reforms on the horizon, so it's us on our toes.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. Interesting you mentioned GDPR there as well, because of course, as you just said, your the start of your now long experience in data protection predates GDPR, and of course, I know that data protection was already very well established pre-GDPR. A lot of people forget that data protection existed before GDPR, but I think the fact that you were there and doing it, and then GDPR happened, I mean, you've seen a lot of change, right? And positive change, I'd imagine.
Yes, definitely seen a lot of change, and although the principles aren't that different from kind of the pre-existing law, the approach to it changed, and it became more headline news, and a lot of people did think that data protection was invented by GDPR, and but people took a lot more notice, and that's only good really for everyone whose data is being handled, which is everyone. It's you and me, it's everybody, it's all our customers. So I think that's only a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brought it to the forefront. And that was one of the purposes of GDPR, right? Is to actually get it at the forefront of people's minds. So, I mean, it feels like GDPR and that sort of stuff might be something we talk about in a future video. But for now, we decided to get together today and just spend a few minutes talking about one particular topic that you and I have sort of connected over online recently, which is data purpose. So of course I talk a lot, and my business, Truly Intelligent Business, talks a lot about data purpose through the lens of data value. Data value being one of those 4 dimensions of the 4DDX data strategy framework. So yeah, the kind of things that we say to businesses that we serve is the different ways in which data can be used as a high value asset and converted into things, solutions, products, outputs, that generate value for the organisation. That's something that's very important to understand in a data strategy. But of course, as you've been talking about a lot lately, and sort of pointed out to me as well, is that data purpose isn't just about data value, it's also about data safety, data protection, which of course is another one of those 4 dimensions of 4DDX. We've got data value, and then the very next one is data compliance. And the reason we put it next is because we say to businesses, yes, definitely start by looking at what data value looks like for your organisation, but before you take a single step in that direction, don't do any of that, sort of don't shoot from the hip. First step you actually need to do is make sure that you and your business and the people inside it and outside it are safe from the data, safe from data risk. So of course there's this duality of importance there, isn't there, in data purpose, not just what does data value look like, but also what does data compliance need to look like. So
absolutely.
What's the data purpose lens on data compliance as you see it then?
So the words data protection get misunderstood all the time, and I'm not surprised, because data protection sounds exactly like you keep the data protected, you keep it secure, and that's all you need to worry about. And it's so much more than that. And of the 6 principles of the GDPR, which the main data protection law that we're referring to, 5 of them are about purpose that you're using the data for. And only 1 of them is about security. Obviously, security is crucial. But if you've got data that you've got no purpose for, you're causing risk to the people whose data it is, because you shouldn't have it in the first place. And if you do have a breach, and as we know that happens all too often, then that's all data you shouldn't have had in the first place, and it's gone out there. And it's a risk to you as well, because you've got stuff milling around that muddies the waters. You don't need it. It confuses matters. Again, if you have a breach, it's out there, and it makes the whole situation much worse if you've lost data you shouldn't have had in the first place. And things like how up-to-date data is, that will depend, which is one of the principles of data protection, that data should be accurate and up-to-date. You need to know how up-to-date does it need to be, and that's based on the purpose as well. You need to know, well, do I need to know up to the second data on this, or is it not likely to change in the next 5 years, and I don't need to worry about refreshing that data every 5 years? So it all starts with purpose as well. You can only say that you've got data when it's about people. Obviously, the principles apply to all sorts of data, but the first one, when we're talking about personal data, you can only say that it's lawful. What you're doing with it is lawful. You can't say the data is lawful. There's no such thing as GDPR compliant data. You can only say that we have collected it for a lawful purpose. And we are continuing to use it for a lawful purpose. And everything's related back to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually, and it feels like it's almost at risk of, I'm almost at risk of getting unnecessarily philosophical about it, right? Because what you just said there, so it makes a lot of sense in that if all data everywhere was just sat there still not doing anything, then actually we wouldn't have a compliance issue, would we? We'd have no need for GDPR. If data wasn't, this digital asset that we can do all sorts of different amazing things with to transform into different outputs that may or may not carry risk. If that whole situation didn't exist, then fine. So that I think, as you say, that really makes the point for me that data purpose and understanding that purpose is the start of any compliance journey, which is why it's behind 5 of the 6 principles there.
Absolutely. There's no point designing your customer journey where you start collecting information you don't need, because you won't have a lawful basis for it, which can sound like that's red, people will say it's red tape, data protection is red tape. But if you can't tell me why you need that data, then it's a waste of everybody's resources, and it's a risk to the people who's, your customers and colleagues. It applies to employees as well. So it's a risk to them. If you're saying, oh, we need to know your inside leg measurement, why? You're selling me a book. Why do you need my inside leg measurement? Well, just in case. You wouldn't accept that.
No, absolutely.
But so companies are collecting things that they are collecting just in case. Or even worse, they're collecting data without us even knowing. Because they're doing it digitally to acquire interaction and that kind of thing.
So we talk a lot, and again, just going back to the lens on data purpose, which is about value rather than protection or compliance. A phrase that we use a lot is the jobs that data have to do. We ask our customers when we're devising their data strategy to think about the jobs that their data need to do, and of course those jobs that we need data to do are defined by what outcomes are we looking for. So an example would be, if we want to use data to improve our customer satisfaction and then improve our customer loyalty and eventually customer lifetime value. So we need some insights and some analytics that are going to help us to do that. Well, there we started to answer the question already. What job does our data need to do? Well, it needs to do the job of being a data insight, delivering that insight in a timely and an accurate fashion, and also consistently across all the different people that are going to use it, sort of 360-degree view of customer stuff. That's the job that we need data to do. Obviously that's a very generalised example, but we're getting to think about that. And I think that same example as well speaks to what you're saying, doesn't it? Because when we look at the answer to that question, what job do we need the data to do, straight away we can see that, right, we're touching on what's very likely to be personally identifiable information here, or data. So there's a compliance, or there's very likely to be a compliance consideration to be made, and that again is very specifically what we talk about with our data strategy clients when we say, as I mentioned earlier on, don't do anything to try and achieve that value that you've envisioned before understanding if there's a compliance step involved there.
Sorry.
No, go on.
Because at the point you're saying about there's likely to be a compliance issue, if it's anything to do with customers, anything to do with colleagues, anything to do with people at whole, there is going to be a data protection issue. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, you're right. It's not likely. It's definitely.
Personal data is anything that relates to an identifiable person.
Yeah.
So it can be a reference number, it can be a description of someone, it can be the one that I get a lot, because I work with housing a lot, is when people are talking about the energy use data. It's not personal data, it's only energy use data. Well, that tells you something about the person using the energy, and the people living in the house using the energy. So all of those things are linked. When we're talking about assets, when we're talking about property, addresses, the people that live in the houses, or even the commercial, the people you're dealing with commercially if you're renting out properties, that's all personal data. So I would say most projects, most kind of data projects, you're more likely than not to have something to do with people, even if it's manufacturing. How quickly something is getting manufactured. If people are involved in that process at all, you're measuring people somehow.
So there's a couple of thanks for sharing that. Because you made me think of a couple of things. One is about the data catalogue prototyping that we very, very often do, commonly as part of a piece of data strategy work. Actually, it's this data stock take. It's this principle of saying, well, look, it's really, really hard, impossible actually, for us to bring the data in this organisation under control if we don't know what data we're dealing with. We need to do that stock take to say, right, we've got data about this, it's come from there, it's going there, and it got there, how, all this sort of stuff. So we prototype a data catalogue with that very basic or fundamental information about the organisation's data, and then we start to pull back the layers. And the obvious one is, like you've been describing here, is like, well, why do we think these data are here? Just generally speaking, even if it's only a broad or a loose sense, let's start to try and answer that question about what job is this data here to do. And it's reassuring to me to hear you describe what you just have there about the person element, because as we look down that growing inventory of answers to the questions about what data do we have and where is it and why is it here, we make this broad sweeping statement really of what you just said. If the data is, or even if we suspect that there's an element of person attached to it, there's a compliance thing there. We immediately put that into the need to expect that there's a compliance consideration to be made here, and it sounds like you would support that sort of generalisation.
I'd always encourage everyone to start with from the default that there is likely to be personal data somewhere in this project or in this analysis that we want to do, even if that's not the main kind of focus. The default is it's more likely than not that you're going to have personal data there, or people involved somehow.
I suppose and the key principle with compliance would be if in doubt, there's no doubt, right? Let's allow these things to qualify themselves out of compliance rather than let's sort of assume that they're not subject to compliance.
Because you're not going to cause any problems for yourselves if you applied the principles of data protection to non-personal data, because it's all data quality type stuff. It's accuracy, relevancy, keeping it secure, keeping it up to date. Well, you want to do that with all data.
Yeah, absolutely, and that reminds me of something else that we talk about when it comes to the other dimension in 4DDX, which is data governance, and then the sort of final and fourth dimension in 4DDX being data operations. So, as you just said, data governance is all about governing behaviours around data to regulate the quality, accuracy, availability of the data, so that it's ready to do the jobs that we need data to do. And then data operations being making sure that everything that we do, all the processes that we perform in and around the data are cost effective and efficient. We're never data busy, we're always data driven, right? So to bring those two dimensions together with data compliance is, I think, kind of what you're saying, is that there's, compliance and governance are different, but then in terms of what we need to do as a business with our data, there's a lot of overlap there, and we can create efficiencies and therefore hit that operational dimension by recognizing that whilst we're here with our hands on the data, making sure it's safe for us and our customers, we can also make sure that it's timely and accurate and available to what we are now safe in doing with it. That kind
yes,
of
absolutely. You wouldn't want to have a data strategy or framework where you were treating your personal data, by those principles, and go, well, the other data, how are we going to handle that? It's like, just handle it all as one, and you need to do a little bit more for the personal related data. So you want all the data to be good quality, you want all your data to be available, you want all of it to be secure.
Yes.
So you really want to separate them out.
Yeah. There's something else as well that springs to mind, which I want to run past you, just get your opinion on, and it's something which is just related to what we're talking about in a similar discipline, which is not data protection, but sort of IT security, right? And there was an IT security engineer who I worked with years and years and years ago, but he said something that always stuck in my mind because I thought it was just a really neat thing. And he was talking about the best firewall in the world, right? So I think at the time he was working at an organisation we were doing some work for on their website security and wanted to put certain elements of this customer system behind a secure firewall. And what he said to me was, do you know what the best firewall in the world is? I said, yeah, go on, tell me. He said, a pair of pliers. Just cut it off, right? Just if there's literally no connection, what you would call an air gap between things, then you're absolutely safe. And I was reminded of that comment years later when I was having another conversation with somebody about a principle that I was sharing, which is that, back to that question about what job do we need the data to do, if the answer is either none or don't know, well then get rid of it. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's get it out of the
Best
business.
Protection.
Right. So a similar
don't
thing
have
then.
the data.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's what you've made me think of there as well is that the thing with the security is, again, purpose. People not understanding that security isn't just one thing, that it should be built in all along. Every time you think about, well, do we need this data? What's the purpose? If we don't need it, we get rid of it. Yeah. That's more secure. Yeah. So the two things absolutely go hand in hand.
That's the data compliance. Yeah, that's the data compliance equivalent of a pair of pliers.
The delete button.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of data. Yeah, if you just delete it, you don't have to worry about it. As long as you've deleted it securely.
Yes, absolutely.
And if it's hard copies, of course, you've not just put it in a skip.
Yes, absolutely.
Which happens a lot.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, not as much as it used to.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it. Here's some horror stories.
Yeah. Words and numbers printed on paper is still data, right? Highly unstructured, but data. Yeah.
Especially when it's medical records and it's got the person's name at the top.
Oh my God. Yeah.
A few horror stories like that.
Okay, that's probably a topic for another video later on.
That's another day.
Yeah. So I guess to wrap up, I'm thinking about stuff that people watching this video can take away that's useful to them, and I'm thinking about what the key or fundamental step. If we could get people watching this video to just take one thing from each of us away. I'm sure there's many more than just one thing we'd like them to take away, but if there's just one thing we could get them to take away, what would that be? Do you want to go first? You got something in front of your mind, or would you like me to go first?
Yeah, so I think my big takeaway would be the message I'm always trying to get across is that data protection is not about do what you want with the data but keep it secure. That it is about the purpose. That there's no such thing as compliant data, there's only compliant purposes. And then everything else flows from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you mind just repeating this again? Just that there's like a mantra there, isn't there? There's no such thing as, I'll let you say it.
There's no such thing as compliant data. There's only compliant purposes.
Perfect.
And then everything else flows from that.
Okay, I'm gonna when I do the thumbnail for this video, I'm gonna have to try and fashion up that with that slogan on there somehow. Let's see how I get on with that. People watching this video will have already known how I've got on with it, depending on what the thumbnail they clicked on, right? But no, that's really that's really insightful and yeah, obviously crucially important, but quite powerful as well. As you know, I'm a bit of a fan of these really important or fundamental concepts that can be wrapped up and expressed in just a single punchy statement. I think that one's absolutely excellent. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. I think the one that I would add as well is and again, the whole purpose of this video, why we decided to get together and record this today, is because of the overlap that we talked about right at the beginning of this this chat. Overlap between purpose for value and purpose for protection and compliance. And I think the purpose for value, thing I'd like people to take away is something that I think we mentioned in a recent article on LinkedIn, is about these three ways really that data has a purpose. Right? I'm going to say it like that actually, because what I've said in the past is three ways that data delivers value, but I might change that now thanks to you, Claire. I might start to say three ways that data has a purpose. The reason we just round on these three ways is because it's a common question we get asked, is that we're trying to pull a data strategy together, and we know that we need to have this focus on data goals and ultimately our business goals, and that's what data driven means, doesn't it? Driving the business towards achieving its goals. So what does that look like then? How do we're really struggling to kind of decide or decipher or pinpoint what their data value or those data purposes are, and putting it into these three categories just really helps with that. And of course the first category is learn from data, so that's obviously data science, data analytics, this sort of stuff. Second second sort of group of purposes for data is operating or working better through data, so that can be anything from relatively straightforward data driven operations, so just working more smartly, all the way through to things like robotic process automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And the final and third one, of course, is data commercialization, sell the data or sell data products. And straight away, I've got to be honest, whenever I say that last one to a data compliance or protection practitioner,
red flag going off.
But I think it's that's a really, I think going forward, I'm probably going to let them shiver and then use that as an opportunity to say, but I'm with you on this, right? Because we're not just answering these questions about data purpose for the purposes of targeting value, we're also answering for the purposes of data protection as you've described here today.
And I would add to that the commercialisation doesn't need to just be as simple as, and it shouldn't be, selling reams of email addresses, but it's selling like you said, the output. It's the knowledge.
We've had plenty of customers in the past who have got insights. Well, this is a really common one. Just got insights in their business reports, dashboards, whatever that might be, and they realise that they, or a form of those reports and dashboards, would be valuable to their customers. And in some cases, they've already been sharing elements of those insights with their customers, and there's this, thankfully, there's this sort of alarm bell that's gone off in the mind of different people. Go, actually, should we be doing this? Is this safe? And also, is there some commercial benefit available to us here? So that's, again, exactly as we're saying in this video, isn't it? That's the point where, whether they know it or not, those individuals are actually thinking about the data purpose, and that's what we need to capture. That needs to be a part of every business's data operations, that doesn't just happen kind of haphazardly or as if by chance. We need to know up front that that's one aspect of our core data capabilities as a business that we need to keep in check and make sure that it's under control and doing what it needs to.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Well, I knew this would happen. When we started chatting, before we hit the record button, we said, right, we need to chat for about 10 minutes and get sort of 10 minutes of pushes out. I haven't been looking at the time. I'm not sure how long we got. But this has been really, really good. Thank you so much, Claire. I always love chatting with you about these topics. And yeah, thanks everybody who's watching for tuning in and listening. And we will see you again perhaps in a future episode. I've just remembered we needed to remind each other to ask people to like and subscribe, or as you put it,
smash that like button.
Smash that like button.
As they say on the YouTube channels that my young children watch.
Exactly the same for me. My kids are always remind me, nice video, Dad, but you forgot to say like and subscribe. And the reality is, no, I didn't. I just couldn't bring myself to say it. That's right. But we've said it now. So yes, if this information, you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you again in a future episode. Cheerio.
Bye bye.